another series of our popular webinar series, InvestNest. Of course, this one is titled Beyond Science, the Future of Biotech and Healthcare, Harnessing Inventive Approaches. My name is James Preston, and just a quick little disclaimer before we do start the session. I need to let you know that this webinar is just for informational purposes. It's not a solicitation or recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock of any of the companies mentioned today, or any companies that may also come up throughout the discussion, or of course, engage in any investment activity that occurs at any point throughout the next hour and a half or so. Now, we're neither licensed nor qualified to provide investment advice through this platform, so please just keep that in mind. Now, with that all said, let's get started with today's webinar on the future of biotech and healthcare, should I say. With the advent of a pandemic, innovations in the field of medical healthcare and biotechnology have well and truly gained momentum. The need of the hour and a strong dependence on the medical system push these sectors to new highs. And the biggest benefactors of the recent rally are the healthcare technology and wellness solution-related players who have been involved in exploring, developing, and operating such beneficial projects. To delve into an insightful discourse about the different aspects and innovations in the biotech and healthcare space, we have us three leaders who are very valued clients of kalkinemedia. That is, of course, PainChek, Prescient Therapeutics, and Holista Colltech. Now, I'd like to welcome the CEO and Managing Director of PainChek, Mr. Philip Daffis, CEO and Managing Director of Prescient Therapeutics, Mr. Stephen Utomi Clark, and Executive Chairman, MD, and CEO of Holista Colltech, Dr. Regin. Now, as part of that, let's begin with our first speaker. I'll have a wonderful little introduction here of Mr. Philip Daffis. He's an accomplished business leader and people manager. He holds a rich profile of serving senior global business leadership positions with leading blue chip healthcare corporates and novel technology startup companies across Europe, the US, and also Australia. And he's done so for a period of more than 25 years. He's contributed immensely in building businesses, growing market share, and developing extensive high-level customer relationships in different sectors. And his focus is currently on PainChek. PainChek is an ASX-listed smartphone-based pain assessment and monitoring application developer. The PainChek app is the world's first clinically proven digital assessment tool. It automates the pain assessment process using artificial intelligence, facial recognition, and smartphone technology. And to go into so much more detail than I can right now, I'd love to throw over the screen to Philip Daffis. Phil, it's fantastic to have you here today. The camera's already on. If I could also ask Regin and Stephen to now switch yours off, and we'll throw over the virtual floor and your presentation to you, Phil.
Thank you, James, and welcome everyone to this conference. I'm delighted to be here today as we just released our quarterly results on the ASX. I'm just going to bring up my screen. Excellent. So good morning, everyone, again, and thank you. Today, I'm just going to talk through our quarterly update, which was just released this morning, along with our Appendix 4C. And I'm going to summarise the fact that in this past period, we've had very positive progress with the PainChek adult app in terms of Australian market penetration, strong implementation in the residential aged care sector, and growth in home care and overseas markets. But in addition, we'll cover the recent regulatory cleared infant app, which you can see on the screen here today, as this product, this infant app to assess pain for children below the age of between 1 month and 1 year of age, is uniquely positioned for a new global market opportunity. So just for those who don't know the company, very, very high level overview. We are, as James mentioned, we're a novel medical device, comes in the form of an app, using AI and machine learning to assess pain, and it's a software as a service business model. We have an adult and infant technologies, both clinically validated and regulatory cleared for use in 6 global markets, with the US FDA in process. We've got patents granted in multiple markets, and the infant app, as I said, is designed to assess post-procedural pain for very young children. The adult app will successfully enter the Australian domestic market with more than 1,500 aged care facilities and 120,000 plus beds across Australia, UK, Singapore, New Zealand. And being a pure software technology, we have strong gross margins of 80 to 25%. Our key focus is to improve health and workflows for clients, their patients, and their residents. So our purpose of the company is to give a voice to those who can't verbalise their pain, and that's a significant number of people. On one extreme, that's people living with dementia, who've lost their ability to reliably verbalise their pain, or where their underlying pain-related behaviours are misdiagnosed and at times treated with the wrong medications, such as psychotropic drugs. On the other extreme, we have infants, very young children, who are pre-verbal and whose healthcare professionals and parents are unable to distinguish whether a child is crying due to pain or for any other reasons. Our goal is to give that objective measure to those healthcare professionals and to their families. These are large global markets. More than 57 million people now live with dementia, and that has recently been raised to 150 million people expected by 2050 as we live in an aging population. People with dementia typically occupy up to 30% of hospital beds, and they can triangulate between home care, aged care, and residential aged care. So there is a big emphasis by governments to actually facilitate care and treatment in all those three sectors, with home care becoming a big shift for the future. In terms of infants, it's a massive market. There are 400 million pre-verbal children at any one time in the world, and over 100 million are infants, less than 1 year of age. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to vaccinate infants who can't communicate their post-vaccination pain and any adverse effects places PainChek Infant into a very unique position. This is our core strategy, our three pillars. We're well developed on the left-hand side with our core residential aged care market expansion. We are focusing now, the next period now, on commercialization of the infant app as a post-vaccination technology, and we're obviously expanding globally into overseas markets. So we balance our investments and our efforts in those three areas. We started with aged care because that's where the need for better pain assessment was at its greatest. Up to 60% of people or residents living in aged care are living with dementia or cognitive impairments, and they are unreliable in their ability to verbalize pain accurately. In addition, up to 80% of those residents suffer with chronic pain. This is a quick footprint of where we have license agreements with aged care facilities or the owners of aged care facilities around the country. We now cover more than 60% of aged care facilities with license agreements for PainChek. So we're not just in every state, not just in every city, we're in each town where there is a residential aged care facility, and that presence is growing internationally as well. The other thing, that the brand awareness of PainChek is driving more demand and leads to new business development opportunities, both locally and overseas. This is progress based upon the last quarter. We were funded last year with government funding to accelerate the transition of PainChek into aged care. We now have more than 1,500 aged care facilities and 120,000 beds across those markets with PainChek licenses. During the past year with the global lockdown, we were able to continue to implement through our online training capability, taking our total beds implemented to 64,000. We have an aggressive implementation plan and a full delivery and training team to implement the remaining beds during this next calendar and financial year. What this equates to is that with all those beds rolled out and all moved on to full PainChek contracts, we have greater than 5.7 million ARR, annualized recurring revenue, which provides a platform for global expansion, and it covers our core operational base in Australia. So just that Australian operational base covers us to extend into global markets and to extend into home care and hospital settings. It also gives us great validation for the business as we take the model from Australia into overseas markets. This is the transition of revenue. So during the past quarter, an additional 7,500 beds were implemented, 3,500 transitioned across from government funded to paying. And now there's, as I said before, more than 64,000 beds implemented. And that equates to the paying beds, the 21,000 paying beds equates to $1 million actual ARR, and the rest will transition as we move towards normal standard paying contracts. These transitions will be seen very well in the cash flow and the recognized revenue over the next 6 to 12 months. We've also extended into the UK. The UK is a very large market. Australia's 200,000 rack beds, UK's 400,000 beds. We've got 3,500 contracted so far. We have now Welsh and Scottish government funding for initial pilots to happen in those countries, including a 1,000-bed pilot in Wales. And those markets alone count for 60,000 bed potential. So we're in England, we're in Scotland, we're in Wales, and we've also gone into Ireland now, Southern Islands, with our partners VCare and Smart Healthcare, as we look to expand across the whole of the United Kingdom and Southern Ireland. We've grown a very large pipeline of new prospective beds, and our integration with CMS partners allows us to cover more than 175,000 beds in the UK. You see a quote on the right-hand side from Cheryl Baird, Director of Quality at Orchard Care. This talks about the value of using PainChek. They initially started up with one aged care home, 50 beds, and now they've extended it across all their homes and 1,200 or 1,200 aged care beds. As you can see there, one of the greatest things is the greatest achievement is a marked decrease in antipsychotic use in those little dementia, and it gives them added value in terms of their ability to address accreditation and regulatory needs. So good growth in the UK. One thing that's been a digital platform, we've transitioned all our training across to e-learning and online training. And as you can see there now, we've trained more than 8,000 users, and that's 1,700 in the past quarter. So we can train people digitally anywhere in the world, which is a great capability to have. We also record every single pain assessment that's conducted, because we have our own portal and everything is online. So in the last quarter, we've continued to grow exponentially in clinical use. That's as we roll out more and more beds, and we're heading towards 1 million clinical pain assessments. We don't just store those pain assessments, we also use our analytics to provide information, insights back to our clients as to how they're managing pain for their residents and how this can support their accreditation and compliance needs. This is a summary of all the integration partners we have. These are care management systems being used in aged care. Basically, everyone in Australia, most people in the UK and now New Zealand and Canada are all integrating PainChek into their offering, which means that every time we do a point of care pain assessment on a resident in aged care, it gets stored automatically in their care management system, reducing duplication of efforts and driving better care. I'm going to move on to now a bit more about the PainChek Infant app, because this is a product that's brand new. It's the world's first facial recognition technology to assess pre-verbal infant procedural pain, and it's done through a 3-second AI-based video analysis of the face. It's CE mark and TGA cleared, and it's also been the work we've done, the clinical study work we've done, been published in the Lancet Digital Health, which is the most prestigious healthcare journal in the world. I've got a very short video to run, which I'm going to go through now. That demonstrates the fact that we now have a tool to assess facial features of pain on infants and document those for carers, both healthcare professionals and family members, to assess procedural pain in infants. Our initial target markets are post-vaccination, which I'll come on to, post-operative, and obviously working with partners, including large therapeutic and diagnostic companies, to bring this great technology to the market. It's totally unique. The the main focus we're going to do now is this area of vaccinations. And as you're all aware, the vaccination program, COVID vaccination program, is now moving towards children and will sometime this year during 2022 focus on infants. That's infants aged between 6 to 12 months of age. For those children, this will be the 6th vaccination they will receive in the first year of their life. And we know that there is an issue with vaccine hesitancy with parents, and we know that of the issues that's caused around the world recently. So we believe there will be greater vaccine hesitancy with parents of very young children, and the need to assess adverse effects, which is mostly things like pain, will be very important in this process. So the key thing here is that infants can't verbalize their pain, and that's what PainChek does. If you look at how we see this working, it really fits in beautifully with how we've seen rats being used and everything else moving to home care. When a child is vaccinated or infant is vaccinated, we know they immediately get acute short-lived pain. But what we can do then is that the immunizer can assess post the vaccination the immediate pain prior to discharge and share that information with parents. Parents can be educated on the signs and symptoms of post-immunization pain, which can last 5 to 7 days by the post-vaccination, and then continue to use the PainChek infant on their phone at home to continue to assess pain. If pain persists, the parent has been educated in terms of next course of action. This is simple, it's very effective, it actively supports monitoring of vaccination and generates real-time medication safety for government bodies such as Ausvac's safety. So our strategy is very simple: work with the professionals, GPs, vaccination centres and pharmacy, provide that as a tool in the professional environment, and then also make it available to consumers in the home environment. Again, this is going to all be downloaded off the Apple Store and Google Play Store. This is our focus for this. We've got regulatory clearance for this product in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Europe, UK, Canada. And we're looking at fast-tracking approval for this in the United States as well, where these vaccinations will start first. So we'll start in the US, we'll move to Europe, and then we'll come to Australia for the 1 month to 12-month-olds. So how we're doing this, we're going to liaise with governments, we continue to liaise with governments. We've got good relationships with the Department of Health here in Australia and the ministers. We are building relationships already existing with large pharma and diagnostics. We'll expand the app utility to 2-year-olds. And then we'll move towards direct-to-consumer marketing for both the infants and the adults. Finally, just another good piece of news: we just made an agreement, a partnership with MPS, with a subsidiary of Sigma Healthcare. This is in the home care market, where we're providing a first end-to-end medication management system for people living in the home. And the nice thing about this relationship has lots of access to pharmacies and healthcare professionals. So we'll look to leverage that relationship as well for our infant launch in Australia. Finally, the team, strong team, very experienced team on commercialization, sales, implementation, and research, both in Australia and overseas. The board has been with us for the last 5 years unchanged. So very pleased. We've got a very strong board of directors, and we've got a good market position. We've got good cash availability, no debt, and a very strong and loyal shareholder base. So I will just hold it there. That's our strategic pillars again, of which I've covered with you, and I'll hold it there for any questions from here.
Terrific, thanks Phil. If you can just remove that from the screen sharing option for the now. Yep. Yeah, really insightful presentation. Very interesting as well about your work with, I suppose, the young children at the moment. Obviously, it is a huge point of contention, something that's been going on for 2 years now, and that is sort of the final hurdle, isn't it? Being able to work with people who perhaps can't actually inform them exactly how they're feeling when it comes to something that they might not even really know too much about. I mean, it's quite a bizarre thing for a lot of kids, really, isn't it?
Well, that's it. I mean, parents, with all the vaccinations going on, for the 3 to 4 to 5-year-olds, parents are the ones that typically have to explain whether they're in pain or not. And you can just about do that for 3 to 5-year-olds, but you can't do that for infants. And we also know from all the data so far that the biggest, for the 5 to 11-year-olds, the biggest adverse effect after vaccination is pain, and it can last up to 5 to 7 days. So this tool would be a perfect tool to be used. You saw how easy it is to use. Everyone's doing rat testing at home. This is a very simple tool for parents to get rid of anxiety, to be able to know their child's not in pain post-vaccination, and to optimize any treatment they need. So this is unique, and there's nothing else like this in the world. Absolutely.
Now, we do have a few questions that have popped in. We'll start with one of our anonymous attendees who says, "Hi, Philip, could you share any progress with the Scottish Care Inspectorate after they recommended the use of PainChek?"
Yes, I can. I sort of touched on this. We've got the pilot happening in Scotland, and that's done with the Scottish Health Board. And that's starting. And at the same time, Nicola Sturgeon, the Minister for Scotland, has actually issued iPads and technologies to all aged care facilities. So there's easy access for PainChek to be added onto. And in addition to that, I just mentioned the Welsh government have done exactly the same, and they've started off with a 1,000-bed pilot with us. If you combine Scotland and Wales together, that's 60,000 beds. So we are starting pilots with them that could lead to national rollouts. So that's really exciting.
I mean, you mentioned their aged care as well. And for me, that's another interesting point, because a lot of people in that age bracket, and being, senior citizens or living in an aged care facility, they're not exactly across technology. Is there a bit of a teething period in trying to get them to use something like PainChek?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because what's happened the last 2 years, because of the lockdown in aged care, they've all had to go to digital training. Everything's had to happen digitally because people have not been allowed to go in. So actually, the use of iPads and technology has accelerated. So the carers in there, this is a carer tool to assess pain, are becoming tech savvy, and actually are preferring to be trained online rather than have people come in because of the risk of infection that could happen. So actually, being a fully digital technology that's downloadable off-site, that's trainable for e-learning and everything else, we've done significant training and implementations, and we've not actually entered hardly any aged care facilities in 1.5 years.
Oh, it's great to hear. It's you're right. It's definitely shifted into more of a digital age, that is for sure, and it's one that's being adopted by everyone. So I think you've hit the nail on the head with that one. Another question coming through: do you anticipate the recommendations in the Aged Care Royal Commission to create any near-term catalysts in terms of RAC new logo growth or implementation overall?
100%. It's a great question. I mean, the compliance requirements in aged care really indicates things like managing pain, assessing pain, and showing that you manage it effectively is a critical element. So that's one of the reasons why we've had such a great take-up. If you go to the UK, the take-up there is all around that issue. Aged care have to show they're actually managing residents' pain better. 80% of people in aged care are living with chronic pain, and 60%, up to 60% are not able to verbalize it. So this is the reason we're driving it. And I think with integration with their CMS systems, it means it's also cost effective, because you just do a PainChek assessment at the point of care on the resident. It all gets documented and stored in the CMS on the care management system, no duplication of effort. So it's a great tool for nurses and carers to have, but for the CEOs, it's when accreditation people knock on the door, they can show clearly they're managing the pain and they're managing it effectively, and it's all documented in real time.
Absolutely. Now, this one is from Jason Clark. He says, "Hi, as a clinician, what are all the features and grants that I would get under PainChek's universal registration?"
Well, you get a tool that would assess every single person in aged care. So you would get a tool. So for those who can't verbalize, it's the full PainChek assessment, which is in some ways an evolution of the Abbey Pain Scale. We've actually, Jennifer Abbey, who developed the Abbey Pain Scale, is on our advisory board, and she loves PainChek. She sees it as the natural evolution of the work she did. So you get a tool to assess independently and objectively assess pain for those who can't verbalize. And for those who can communicate their pain, we've built in the numeric rating scale system, which means you can ask somebody for their pain levels and you can store it automatically, and you can use both in between as needed. So you've got we call a universal pain assessment tool for all residents in aged care. And it's very cost effective.
Well, on that point, Avery's also asked a question along those lines. I'm an aged care provider. I want to know if PainChek's pain assessment tools and features will be used for both acute and chronic pains.
Well, absolutely. It's a pain assessment at a point in time. So chronic obviously is a longer term assessment, and acute is short term. But it's the idea behind PainChek is you assess, and then you reassess and you reassess. And the amount of reassessments you do based upon whether it's a chronic pain or an acute pain. So it fits in with the protocol of the aged care facility, but it's there for use with acute and for chronic pain. It's a standard pain assessment tool.
And last one, because I know you've got to head off pretty soon. This one's from Simon. Considering the global impact of the pandemic, the usage percentage of digital pain assessment tools must have surged. Is that correct?
Absolutely. If you look at our numbers, we've actually got close to 1 million assessments completed on our technology over the past 18 months. And that number is growing exponentially as we roll out more and more beds. And of course, now we've got the PainChek assessment and the NRS assessment. So we're covering every single person in aged care. We're also moving into home care. We've got our first agreements in home care. And we're also moving into hospitals as well, because hospitals, again, it's a great tool for the hospitals. And we've got some potential global partnerships with big providers to take us into those areas. So partnerships for us is really important. Remember, Australia's a great building ground for our product and technology, but the real opportunity is the global markets. So, and very simply, Australia's 2% of the global market. I'm actually going to the UK at the end of this, in February, for a 2 or 3 month period to work with our team there and to exploit and to explore the opportunities with our partners in Europe and potentially North America. So I'm actually finally getting out of Australia after 2 years of lockdown and actually some time overseas to actually grow our business with our team overseas.
Look, that all sets it up for a very exciting future for PainChek, that is for sure. Now, I know you've got to head off now, so what I might do, Phil, is just get your final thoughts on getting involved in the webinar today, and also what you would like everybody who's attended for today to take away from PainChek and what you're seeing in the future.
I guess 2 things. One is the products, what we have is unique, and we've got a market lead for built in Australia, which we're taking overseas. Great technology and very, very large markets. But the other thing I point out is that we've got a real team that knows how to commercialize. We've shown that in Australia, we've shown that in the UK, and I believe often the difference between a successful company and an unsuccessful one is the ones who've got commercialization experience and ability are the ones that succeed. And often that, to me, that is all the way through PainChek. So you're with a great product and a great team who've got proven experience.
Wonderful. Well, Phil, thank you so much for joining us today for the latest edition of Kalkine's InvestNest webinar.
Thank you very much, and appreciate everybody's time. Thank you,
Wonderful.
James.
That's Philip Daffis, the CEO of PainChek. Let's now continue on with our webinar. Phil, have a fantastic afternoon. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't get your question answered there, you can still do so. Just make sure that you write down an email, info@kalkinemedia.com. We'll pass that on to Phil. But let's continue pushing through with the rest of our expert talkers today. There's plenty of exciting information to get across. And our next guest is none other than Stephen Utomi Clark. Now, this is a man that we certainly want to have a very big chat with. He has immense knowledge and years of experience. He's made a huge contribution in leading the firm of Prescient Therapeutics since its early days, and he's been managing the PTX teams based in Australia as well as in the US over the years. He's invested time and effort into making Prescient Therapeutics establish a strong position in the industry via strategic development, licensing, initiating and managing clinical trials, fundraising, and also, of course, business development. Prescient Therapeutics is a leading clinical stage oncology firm focused on the development of revolutionary personalized therapies for challenging cancers having unmet medical needs. Prescient hosts several anti-cancer programs which are advancing in the right direction towards multiple value-creating milestones. And to expand on all of that and more, I now throw it over to Stephen. The virtual floor is yours. Welcome to Kalkine.
G'day, mate. Many thanks. Many thanks. I'll just share my screen, will I? Excellent. Many thanks, James. Thanks, Kalkine, and thanks everyone for your time today. Super excited to be talking to you about Prescient and our position in oncology. In my career, I've never seen an opportunity where you're actually ahead of the wave, and a very, very big wave with very few competitors on it. Very unique in science and very, very rare from an investment proposition. And you know, as terrible as this pandemic's been, no one's playing down how severe it's been with over 5 million deaths in over 2 years. Let's remember that every single year, 10 million people die of cancer every year. And you know, 1 in 3 people. So it is the encouraging thing there amidst those glib numbers is that more progress has been made in the last 5 years than in the last decades, or maybe the last century combined. It is truly an exciting time to be in cancer, and we are extremely well positioned. To introduce Prescient by way of investment highlights, we have a very simple business model. We license from the best and we work with the best. Our science comes from institutes that you would recognize: UPenn, Yale, Moffitt Cancer Centre, Oxford University. License from the best and work with the best, peer reviewed in over 100 journals. The science is very much sleep at night. We have lots of shots on goal so that there's inherent risk mitigation built into the business, but also lots of opportunity for value creation. We have 2 programs in the clinic. Either of these are a company maker in their own right, and I'll spend a little bit of time on that today. But we're moving now into a new direction, a game-changing technology and game-changing platform called Omnicar, which is using cell therapy, which, as the name suggests, is using living cells as a medicine. And that has yielded 3 programs internally. And I don't have time to touch on these, but all of these are highly differentiated. There's nothing like it out there. And also, as a genuine platform, we'd love this to be, you know, the Intel chip inside everyone else's computer, if you like. We can work with other people. So that's a snapshot of who we are, a snapshot of our metrics, where depending on the day, anywhere between 120, 170 million over the last week or so. Obviously, in line with the market, we've had a little bit of a pullback. So what we believe is a pretty strong story just got even better value. So, you know, remember, people, buy quality on the dips. So a snapshot of our pipeline is here. I don't have time to go over all of this. I think the take-home message is that we're not a one-product company. We're not a one-trial company. We take a portfolio approach that diversifies risk. And when I mean diversified, it's in the type of cancers that we're treating, how we're treating them, both inside and outside of the cell, and their stages of development. So it's nice staggered news flow, built-in risk mitigation, and we take a portfolio approach so that I guess investors don't need to. I'll be touching first on those green bars on the bottom, our targeted therapies. They're focusing on things inside the cell that drive cancer. And then I'll spend a little bit of time in our next generation platform, which are the blue bars, but I'll speak about them collectively. So just to speak firstly about PTX 100, it's a first-in-class inhibitor of a certain protein called RAS, and the leading hematologist in Australia, Professor Miles Prince, has led and is leading a clinical study right now that is underway. We did what's called an escalation study, where you give increasing amounts of the drug to determine its safety, and it was amazingly safe in a diverse group of patients, cancer patients, even at the highest level. This is important because, well, firstly, for 2 reasons. One, these are very, very sick patients, and they often can't tolerate very vigorous drugs that they need to get better. And secondly, often you need to combine these with other drugs in the marketplace, and other companies and certainly clinicians want to know that your drug plays well with theirs. Over and above safety though, and even though we were not looking for it, we saw a really interesting and encouraging efficacy signal, where we saw 2 people with a type of blood cancer called T-cell lymphoma. We saw them have an amazing response. So these patients shouldn't be alive, pretty much. So these PTL patients and CTL patients, where you would normally expect 3, maybe 4 months, is now 12 months, and the PTL cell patients is over 20 months now. So the drug is working and the drug is safe. So where to from here? We're honing in on the sweet spot, which is this type of blood cancer called T-cell lymphoma. And you can basically get what would normally be a very big study for a biotech company, go phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We can do a small study, which we're screening for right now, 8 to 12 patients and test for a more definitive efficacy signal. If that looks good, and this is reading out this year, this calendar year, if this straight to a registration study. What's a registration study? It's the phase 3 equivalent that you need to get your drug onto the market. Now, what's the size of the prize in this patient population? I draw your attention to a drug called pralatrexate. The brand name is Folliton. This was approved for the exact same patient population. The drug doesn't work particularly well. It benefits about 27% of patients only, and of those patients, only about 3 to 4 months. And look how much it sells for a year. It's about $500,000 per year. So it's not the biggest market by patient size, but it is a very big niche market opportunity. And the hurdle is relatively low when, competing drugs don't work very well. And if we can replicate what we've seen so far in our study, then I think we've got a very, very compelling proposition here. We also have another drug focused on cancer switches inside the cell called PTX200. This is in another type of blood cancer called AML. In this type of cancer, people die typically within 6 to 8 months. And we've seen 3 complete responses on the study so far, which is great. A guy leading this, Jeff Lancet, is a genuine global key opinion leader in AML, got the first drug approved for this disease in 40 years. And this is the very next trial that he took on. So this is also reading out this year and has been given orphan drug designation by the US FDA. So I've just very, very quickly touched on 2 drugs. Either of these are a company maker, both of them spitting out data this year. I'm going to switch gears now and talk about the most amazing type of therapy that cancer has ever seen, and it's called CAR-T. So it's basically a way of taking your immune cells. When you get a cold and you feel your throat swell up, your body is producing an army of cells called T cells that are really good at fighting infection, but do not recognize cancer. We take those same cells out of a cancer patient, you isolate these T cells, and outside of the body, you reprogram them that instead of identifying and killing infection, they're identifying and killing cancer. And this is called a CAR-T cell, and millions of these are grown up and given back to the patient. And we're seeing responses like we've never seen before. And the classic example of this was Emily Whitehead here, aged 6, had failed 2 rounds of chemotherapy for an awful blood cancer called ALL, and was 24 hours from her organs shutting down when she started on this therapy, the very first pediatric patient to receive this therapy. And this was her a year later, and then 5 years later. And of May last year, Emily's 9 years cancer-free. And it's examples like this that have really emboldened quite conservative clinicians to declare that this could be the beginning of the end of cancer. Previously, no one has ever dared use the word cure, but now people can actually dare to think about curative intent. And this is just the start. This therapy is not science fiction. It was pioneered by the University of Pennsylvania, a guy called Carl June. Novartis was the first company to latch onto this in 2012, and that little bag of cells became the first product on the market. It is even available in Australia through Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre. A single bag, single infusion costs $500,000. This is subsidised by the PBS, and there's now 5 such products, all targeting a very specific type of blood cancer, 2 types of blood cancer now available. So this is here now, well over 100 Australians being treated successfully with this therapy. So it's quite amazing. But like any brand new technology, the first iteration is perhaps the clunkiest, and that's what we see with CAR-T. So think of it like this. CAR-T is where VHS tapes were in the 80s. As wonderful as CAR-T is, that's where it is. And these are some of the key challenges that need to be overcome if CAR-T is to reach more patients in more cancers at earlier lines of therapy, so that it's just not limited to a certain type of cancer and the sickest of the sick. So it's the time and cost of a bespoke treatment, safety and control, because you're injecting a living cell, and 1 cell becomes 2 and 2 becomes 4 and so on. And often these have caused severe toxicities and occasionally deaths in patients. So it's not without its challenges. There's no way of controlling it once you infuse it. And also knowing what to target it against to stop these cells getting puffed out because it's a marathon, not a sprint. We're asking them to sprint currently. And how do you prevent the cancer escaping? Because at the moment, if that's a key chink in the armor of CAR-T, if the tumor does happen to mutate, then you're left with all of the side effects of the therapy and none of the benefits. And this is where it gets super exciting. And Prescient is very blessed to have licensed this technology from the very same people, the very same institute that invented CAR-T, saw some of those problems that I mentioned on the previous slide, and a deliberate attempt between their protein engineers and their cell biologists to come up with a modular CAR-T. This is basically using your immune cells like a Lego set. And it separates the binding part that binds to the cancer with the living part in the cell that switches it on and tells it to kill. And this is also employing a really interesting technology from Oxford. So this is basically, it's a genuine platform. We can use any part that binds to the cancer cell, anyone's binder, and we can use any cell type. So we don't need to be a zealot on one cell type over another or one binder over another. We're truly agnostic. Our magic is in the modularity, and by modularizing it, you can overcome those issues that I had on the previous slide. And if you can overcome those issues, we're opening the door to so many more cancers and so many more patients. It is relieving the bottleneck. And here's briefly how it works. So you've got the CAR-T cell with the construct inside, and basically think of it, half of the Velcro sticking out. And at this stage, the cell is alive, but it's dormant. It's waiting for your command. And then the clinician puts in the binder with the corresponding bit of Velcro, which binds to the cancer. The bits of Velcro come together, and then you're getting on-demand tumor killing. So what does that mean? Well, if we think about conventional CAR-T as a soldier in your immune system fighting cancer, it is a soldier that only has one map, one weapon, can only hit one target, you can't redirect it, and you can't even communicate with that soldier in the field. Now that's not an ideal soldier to have, but as wonderful as CAR-T is, that's unfortunately what it is. With Omnicar, where are we taking it? Well, you can arm this soldier with any weapon, including multiple weapons at once, multiple maps for multiple deployments, multiple targets, including several at once, full communication and control mid-mission, and can even send images back. So people, if you remember only one slide, remember this, as wonderful as CAR-T is, that's that on the left, and we are there on the right. You can see we're taking this game to the next level for the entire field. And I don't have time to go into our programs, but we've got 3 in-house programs there in blue, all of them highly differentiated. They're at preclinical stage and marching towards the clinic with a lot of purpose, a lot of news this year on each of those programs. But over and above that, we can collaborate with third parties, as I said, anyone interested on a particular target, anyone using their own immune cell, anyone using a specific construct. We can modularize it, and by modularizing it, we make it controllable and flexible and better. So where are we in the whole landscape? Because this can get pretty confusing. You hear all the, there's lots of companies out there working on components here, just to show you how we're positioned and how favorably we're positioned. Those incumbents there with those 5 products on the market, they're focused on, depending on cell types, targets, indications, and how they're made. They're there in the orange, and we are here addressing all of it. So we can work with these incumbents, but we can work with any cell type and any target. So that is a favorable place to be, and it future-proofs us. We don't have all our eggs in any one basket. So that is a wonderful thing for Prescient and our investors. You're wondering what the end game is for us. So we are definitely pursuing our internal programs. There's no doubt about that. But we all know what Apple did for online services and consumer technology by building this integrated ecosystem. And I make no excuse for how ambitious our goals are here with Prescient. We aim to do for cancer therapy and cell therapy what Apple has done for consumer technology, and that is a patient-centric, plug-and-play personalized system. What does this mean? We see a time in the not too distant future when a patient goes to the clinic, their tumor is biopsied, and the patient, the doctor determines the particular mutational profile of their cancer. You pull off the shelf some Omnicar binders that address those exact same antigens, the exact same mutations that particular patient has. You plug and play, you put them onto a set of cells ready to receive it, and bang, a patient is given best-in-class, optimized, tailored cancer therapy. The good news about this, we don't have to carry all of this. Anyone developing a binder, bang, they go into the App Store. Anyone developing a nice particular cell, put it in the App Store. So we're carrying a couple of programs. It's going to be the beachhead of this. But believe me, all of the conversations we're having externally, they are resonating with a lot of companies and a lot of institutes that see where this is heading. And at its heart will be Omnicar. So it's an incredibly exciting period for us and for the whole field of cancer. And that is that really. I haven't had time to go into great depth, but I think you get a glimpse that, you know, Omnicar is definitely the future. It's a next generation universal platform. We've got 3 programs in there and a lot of third-party opportunities. We've got cell therapy enhancements, which I haven't even spoken about. It's a collaboration we have with Peter McCallum of making current generation cell therapies work better. And that'll be coming out of stealth mode soon, and we own all the IP. And we have our targeted therapies in the clinic right now, PTX 100 and 200. So finishing where I started, again, license from the best and work with the best, a good sleep at night factor with the science, lots of shots on goal, PTX 100 and 200, you know, putting out data this year. Either of those can be a company maker. We don't even need both of them to win. But really, what sets us apart from any other company pretty much in the world is this technology from the people who invented CAR-T. This is next generation CAR-T, genuine next generation platform that's yielding 3 programs internally. But again, this ecosystem, bring it on. It's incredibly exciting for us. So that is that. Our code is PTX, and hopefully look forward to welcoming you all as shareholders.
Stephen, thank you so much for the really insightful presentation there. It's incredible the work that you're doing, and you're really looking forward to that collaboration you're working on too, because that could be quite game changing, really. Now, there are a stack of questions coming through. If I could just get you to pop off the share screen option there, we'll just close that down. Let's start with Jason Cox. He says, hey, what a great session it was. I just wanted to know if there's any major collaboration in prospect with any global cancer center as of now.
Can't responsibly answer that because we haven't announced anything, but I can say this is that for the last, we've got a full-time BD guy working in the States, very experienced guy. In the last month alone, we've had, well, since November, we've had 6 different conferences. In the last 3 weeks, we've had about 100 meetings. We've another one underway right now, doing all the things we need to be doing, speaking to people who have binders, cells, and some of them have their own CAR-T programs. The thing is, when you've got a platform like this, we're being very strategic about how to position ourselves and them. You don't want to put a ring on the first person that you date. We want to make sure that, and it may not even be the biggest player. In fact, it often isn't. So it has to be the right player that's motivated to move in the same direction as us. So we're definitely having all of those conversations now. You know, it's very full dance card at, you know, wherever we go, everyone wants to learn about it. I think that one thing about being at the front of the wave like we are is that some people are still catching up thinking, we know we need this. How do we best integrate it? Which program do we start with? So we're doing all the things we should be doing. It's going to yield results, and I think it's going to be an interesting year for us.
Another question here for you as well, Stephen, from Ron Wright. He says, hi, I'm curious to understand how Omnicar fixes the limitations of the current generation CAR-T cell therapies that are available.
Yeah, and appreciate the limitations of that time you're being unable to dive down into the science. But basically, the limitations of current cell therapy are, there are many. First of all, it's a fixed construct. So someone has to make it bespoke, and it is what it is. It's a cell with a bit sticking out of it that attaches to cancer, and it's a living cell. So once you make it, it divides. The problem is you can't control it. If there happens to be a deleterious event, you want to be able to switch that off. With us, what we're able to do by separating the modular system, you can give the cell, you give the cell once. Then by giving the binder, just like you would any other drug, you can ramp up activity. And if you want the activity to stop, you actually stop giving the binder and it switches off but remains viable. It also means that if the cancer evolves, we can throw in 1 binder, 2 binders, 3 binders and direct it to kill new targets without a new cell. At the moment, if you need to do that, that's a $3 million, $5 million therapy, and it's a month to make it each time. We avoid all of that.
Another question here from Leslie, who says, hi, can you tell us how expansion of the application of universal CAR T therapies like Omnicar can be a boom for cancer patients?
So basically what this means is CAR T is currently only reserved for a couple of cancers where blood cancers where you know what binder to use. And it's very slow progress making these all bespoke for new cancers, but it's happening. And because of the safety profile of it, it's only reserved for the sickest of the sick. If we can marry the best of both worlds, having the unparalleled cancer-killing property of a CAR T cell, but giving it the control and the predictability of a conventional biologic or a drug that doctors are used to giving, and making that safer and predictable, you're opening this up to many, many, many more patients. You're not just reserving it for the sickest of the sick. And by being able to direct it against many different targets, it limits you to many more cancers where we know where those targets are. So that's basically how it can open up the entire field.
Now, there's a few questions here from Joseph. I'll try and combine them into one because it's a bit scattered at the moment, but it says roughly, when can we expect to see some results on the performance of PTX 100?
Yes, so thank you, Joseph, for your questions. I tried to address that in the body of the talk. So both PTX 100 and 200 are producing data this year. PTX 200 in AML. That has, as we put out now quarterly at the end of last year, that had been cooled by slow enrollment because of the pandemic in Florida and in Kansas. But it's back up and running now, and we're due to complete that this year. And PTX 100, we've got delivery again, as we put out now quarterly. The drug is due to be delivered any minute now, and we've got Miles Prince absolutely chomping at the bit, ready to go. And that'll be recruiting and finishing this year as well. So it'll be a big year for both of those drugs.
Terrific. And last one for you, Stephen. Chris says, Prescient has been working to take personalised cancer treatment to the next level. What new tools can be expected in 2022 for clinicians in the fight against cancer?
Well, I think in terms of things that will be completed, development and approved, that's a different question. But there's no doubt that in terms of development, what we're seeing is a convergence of several things. We're seeing a boom in activity in this area. We're seeing much more research on that binder part and on the cell part. So people are producing new cells. Ideally, people want to be making off-the-shelf cells so that a patient doesn't have to wait. You can pull them off the shelf, and we can work with both of those where we're agnostic on that. So I think we're going to see a bit more clinical validation in off-the-shelf cells, and that will be wonderful for Prescient and our ecosystem. But ultimately, in terms of clinicians, this thing is still currently limited by the centres that are allowed to deploy the therapy, because it's very much an infrastructure play. You need to have the ICU beds just to these patients to get the therapy. Luckily in Australia, we've got a couple of places that are licensed to do that, and one of them being Peter Mac here in Melbourne. There's a couple in Sydney and Queensland as well, as I understand. So an abundance of activity being funneled through a number of current sites.
Terrific. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for answering all those questions and for a really great presentation today.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll get you to hang around as well until after we finish with Regin so we can get your final thoughts. But let's now move on to our last speaker. Stephen, thank you so much once again. Now, I would like to give you a great introduction here to the Executive Chairman, MD and CEO of Holista Colltech, Dr. Regin. Now, Dr. Regin is the founder and CEO of Holista Colltech. He's a prominent figure in the Malaysian biotech industry. He's also a member of the Ministry of Health's Standing Committee in Traditional Medicine. Also, he served as the organising chairman of the 3 series of the Women's Health and Asian Traditional Medicine, or the WAT Medicine Association. And Holista Colltech is a Perth-headquartered health and wellness company providing a diverse range of products. The research-driven biotech company has 4 key divisions, including dietary supplements, healthy food ingredients, ovine collagen, and infection control solutions. The range of health and food-related solutions combine nature and science and address the evolving needs for a better and healthier lifestyle. And to talk to us in more depth about it, I'd now like to please introduce to you Dr. Regin. The virtual floor is yours.
Hi, James. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon to those of you in Australia. Good morning to anybody else in Malaysia who's watching. Let me just share my screen and take you through. So a quick background about Holista Colltech. As James said, we are listed on the ASX, Perth-based. We've got from an investment point of view, we've got right now a price range between 4.1 to 8.2. We've got a fairly tight shareholder registry. Now, a bit about the company. We have reach for customers in Asia, Malaysia, where we are very prominent. We have a division in the US or subsidiary in the US, and of course in Australia. We've got a range of patent protected proprietary technologies. And last year we crossed 7 million in sales. Now, the key products include the low GI ingredients used by leading food manufacturers and all natural sanitizer for consumers. And in Malaysia, we lead the dietary supplement market in 2 or 3 categories. And we are a company that makes a sheep collagen from sheep. From an investment point of view, we've got multiple revenues with defensive revenue streams, global reach, large addressable market in the wellness industry, established partnerships with leading global consumers, and based on how we finished last quarter, we have a very positive outlook for 2022. We have 4 big divisions or 4 different divisions. The largest being the division in Malaysia, which is the one that does does dietary supplements, and we are the market leader with Prescient in the fish oil category, market leader with Lacto5 in the probiotic category, and working on getting leaderships in other categories. This division has been growing, and as we announced today, it's grown 31% in the last quarter. Then we've got healthy food ingredients. This is the one that's the fastest growing division. We've got a patented glycemic index formulation, and we can practically make any baked goods, be it bread, tortillas, flatbreads. We can make them low GI. And then we've got a low sugar substitute, which is important in a market where people increasingly don't like sugar. And then we are the first to produce collagen from sheep. And Australia is unique in the sense that the animals in Australia are disease-free, and that's very important in the cosmetic and medical industry. And we also, sheep, as you probably know, is more neutral than the 2 other mammalian sources, cows and pigs. And then last year we set up the division that looked at infection control. We've got an all-natural sanitizer, and we're also becoming a distributor for rapid antigen test kits. This is the announcement we put out today morning on the platform. Our quarterly sales have jumped 27% on a previous corresponding period. We had significant improvements in cash flows. Growth in Q1 puts Holista on track to deliver strong full results. We have a very positive outlook in 2022. Our financial year ends December 31st, and we are in the midst of our audit, so all these are subject to a final external audit. As I said earlier, in the dietary supplement market, we are the market leader with fish oil and probiotics, and our Q4 sales was 31% over the previous corresponding period, and 15% year-on-year, quarter-on-quarter. The growth is driven by rebound from COVID, obviously, and launch of dietary supplements, Hydro D, which is a water-soluble vitamin D, and also our Nasal Balm. It's a cash cow business. Right now, it contributes 70% of our sales. And it's interesting that the global supplement market grew 8.4%, and it's expected to grow 8.6% in the coming 7 years. In Q4, sales increased by 10% here. Growth driven by a US baker, Costanzo's Bakery, and also HWH International. With partnership, we've announced this with Berjaya, which opens up opportunities with Starbucks Malaysia, 7-Eleven, and Kenny Rogers. We've completed final testing of the healthier croissants, and we expect that to get launched in Starbucks 27 outlets in Malaysia and Brunei. Ovine collagen, sales increased by 19% on the previous corresponding period. We supply this to Thai-based cosmetic manufacturers. We're the only company that can extract ovine collagen from Australian sheep using a very patented process. We now have a collaboration with Guangzhou Symbio to purchase our collagen once we have the trials completed and approvals in China. We have a binding sales agreement to see Holista expand plant capacity to 576 tons in the coming 4 years. With collagen, we want to grow the business, the existing business. We want to partner with people who can help us with the food grade, which we've done all the R&D looking for a commercializing partner, and in the medical grade, where there is huge upsides and opportunities, because it's part of the anti-aging market, it's part of the organ printing market. So getting this space is important. We cannot do it ourselves. We need to have a good partner, and we are talking to partners. Now, for infection control, we've recorded obviously a huge sales, but that's on a very low base. Nasal Balm has become available online. We'll launch in the US in the coming quarter. Nasal Balm contains 5% pathway, which has been proven to kill SARS virus, SARS-CoV-2, 99.9%, which is log 3 in under 2 minutes. We also have a SARS-CoV-2 kit pending approval in Latin America and undergoing approval with the US FDA. We have a new LAMP technology used to test LAMP kits, also waiting final evaluation in the UK. So this is a kind of timeline of what we've done in the last 1 year. We got the sugar sales, our low GI sugar, with another listed company in Malaysia here. We signed a deal with Costanzos. We tested against SARS-CoV-2. We had a first order of GI Light from Costanzos. We had the infection control unit with Airborne. We have exclusive distribution arrangements in China. We received our first order in Malaysia of the SARS-CoV-2 test kit of GeneSign. We have NatShield approved as a trademark in China. We have signed a term sheet with Berjaya Country Farms, and we've shown that NatShield is effective on hard surfaces and lasts for 12 hours. We've also shown that it lasts on human skins and hence a human nose for 12 hours. We have multiple growth levers, obviously, because we have 4 divisions. There's a strong improved outlook for the coming year. As a company, we are expanding our margins, and I think there are some positive tailwinds coming up, especially in the food division and the food segment, and the test kits, given that there's a huge demand for test kits in the world right now. This is our board, and of note is Roscoe Moore, who's on our scientific advisory board. He heads our scientific advisory board. He's an assistant US Surgeon General, served Senior Bush and President Clinton. And right now, he is a member of the Global Viral Network, 40 top professionals who advise governments around the world in terms of all aspects of COVID. And that network is being led by Robert Gallo, who is the co-founder of the AIDS virus. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what we are as a company, and I'm happy to take questions and open up for discussion.
All right, Jen, thank you so much for your presentation there. We do have a fair few questions that have popped through now. Let's start with Sandra, who says, where do you see the health and wellness industry heading, and what other market opportunities excite your research and development team the most?
I think post-COVID, we've realized the importance of immune supplements, and we have one already, a vitamin D. Vitamin D is very important vitamin. Today, if you Google it, it's the most researched vitamin on the planet. It is, the problem with vitamin D is it's fat soluble. And that means it's very poorly absorbed. And the other way to get vitamin D is to get on the sun, and we don't do that anymore because of concerns of skin cancer. So we've developed a water-soluble vitamin D that's fully absorbed. And the process using only natural ingredients and an FDA and a patented process, and with using FDA GRAS certified ingredients, which make it safe for all age groups, for all ages, for all stages of life, pregnant mothers, nursing mothers, right? So we have this as a drop that you can add to any drink that you want. We also have the Nasal Balm that we are launching, and the nose is a very important point of entry of respiratory pathogens. And the balm traps them, and the SARS-CoV-2, the pathway of the net shield ingredient, the key ingredient, kills off those viruses within 2 minutes. We think there's a big opportunity for rapid antigen test kits, and we are pending registrations in South America. We've got a Malaysian registrations. We have pending registrations in the UK and in North America.
Well, on the subject of rats, there is a question here from Jack Adam who says, Australian states and territories have moved away from PCR COVID-19 tests to rapid antigen tests. How does this shift in the testing regime boost the company's range of COVID-19 test kits?
I believe that the PCR test had an EUA that has been revoked by the CDC since January. So as of now, the only test we have is a rapid antigen test. Obviously, you want to look at quality, and hence there's a lot of people lining up for registrations globally. We believe that we've got a good test kit. We work with GenSign. They are linked to the P4 Wuhan lab in China. We believe we have the quality. We also have another technology called LAMP, which can supersede PCR in the sense it's faster and cheaper, and there's far less risk of the results being manipulated as it would be with PCR.
Another question for you as well. Are there any plans for geographical expansion in the near term?
Yes, we are with the test kits, and also with our Nasal Balm, we are looking in a big way in South America, which is a growing market. We have pending registrations there right now, as we've just announced. And we also think there is opportunities for the low GI ingredients in India, for example, in China as well. So we're working with partners, and in Malaysia, we already work with Berjaya, that already working with us on the sugar as well as the croissants with the low GI ingredient. I think that the pandemic really, the pandemic before this pandemic was diabetes and obesity, and the pandemic after this pandemic will also be diabetes and obesity, and there's no vaccine for that, right? So food is medicine, and medicine is food, and every time you eat, you can either have a healing meal or a killing meal. I believe that our ingredients, if added, can make that meal more relevant, less killing, and more healing, without any sensory deprivation. The taste won't change.
Well, on that point, there is a question here from Nick who says, amid growing awareness about health, immunity, and infection control, how far does your company's diverse offerings complement each other and chart out a path to leverage the new market opportunities? How much of what you do at Holista Colltech is indeed all about that holistic approach?
Well, for a start, no, I think that immunity is not just an immune supplement, right? I tell people, don't think of getting sick from COVID, think of not getting sick. We know that those who die of COVID don't die just of COVID. They die if they have a comorbidity, if they are diabetic, obesity, or hypertension. So it's important we eat right. And in fact, the co-inventor of the mRNA vaccine has come and said the most important thing is glycemic control. Control your blood sugar. So if you're eating less carbs, less sugar, and you have a low glycemic levels, then the risk of you getting diabetes, the risk of you becoming obese, and the risk of you getting into hypertension go away, and that will prevent your the risk of you getting infected. Now, on top of that, we've got vitamin D. We will be launching in Malaysia soon a vitamin C. We've got a link up with ProImmune, which is a formulation of 3 amino acids with a selenium catalyst, which boosts your glutathione production, because that's the master antioxidant. And that's a very important part of your immune system.
And last question here for you as well, Dr. Regin, is from Avery, who says, Holista has several compelling offerings in the infection control settings. How do these provide customers with superior value? Are there any other products in the pipeline?
I think that the nasal balm in particular, as we roll this out elsewhere, is a superior value in the sense that it's an added layer of protection. I believe COVID won't go away. Like AIDS, we will fear it less, but we'll all be more careful, we'll all take precautions. So AIDS came, and at one point we were so afraid to be in the same room with another AIDS patient. Today we have no problem, but we all use more condoms, and condom sales have gone to the roof. So I think the nasal balm, has a parallel there, and we're working to develop this further. I think all immune supplements, I believe, especially water-soluble vitamin D, can be part of any good immune program, can be added to water, can be added to drinking water, can be added to enhance vitamin D in drinking water, mineral water, milk, whatever, where you have a higher vitamin D content. A water-soluble vitamin D will really assist the process. Now, we are working on a couple of other things which have not been announced, so I will not, obviously go into that area.
Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure to hear your presentation today and also having you answer all those questions. Ladies and gentlemen, that is MD and CEO of Holista Colltech, Dr. Regin Manikavasagar. Thank you so much, Dr. Regin.
Thank you, James, and thank you all.
Now, as I've still got you here right now, let's get your final thoughts on the day itself and getting involved in the webinar. What do you want people to take away from what Holista Colltech is doing?
I think, Holista Colltech has been quite many years in R&D. We're now going very commercial. I believe that our collaborations with our partners gives us access to markets, both locally and globally. And I believe that on our food ingredients in particular, we will see some good growth opportunities. But I think with the rapid antigen tests, given there's a huge shortage globally with antigen tests, I think that presents a quick, short-term, immediate opportunity for the company and its investors.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for getting involved today with kalkinemedia.
Thank you, James.
Now, Stephen, I know you're still there. If I could just get you to turn on your camera now, and we'll get your final thoughts as well, what you want people to take away from what Prescient's doing, and also your thoughts on getting involved today.
Yeah, I won't dive into too much detail because it's a lot for everyone to take in. But really, I think the more investors just apply common sense to their metrics, I think the more compelling we look. Diversity in your pipeline, risk mitigation, ability to execute on time and on budget or under budget. Tick, tick, tick. But again, the science, sleep at night science from the best institutes. You find the biggest sector, you think of cancer, you think of what is at the forefront of cancer, cell therapy. Who is at the forefront of cell therapy? We are. So really just apply some common sense, and I think we come out smelling pretty good. So looking forward to welcoming everyone to the register.
Absolutely. It's all roses over at Prescient, that's for sure. Well, Stephen and Dr. Regin, thank you so very much for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this edition of our InvestNest webinar series. If you didn't get a question answered, maybe you've thought of one late, you can always get that answered from any of our experts today, whether it be Philip, Stephen, or Dr. Regin. Just do so by going to our email, info@kalkinemedia.com, and you can pass that along. That is it for now, though. Hope you enjoyed our guest presentations and all the questions and answers. Until next time, we'll see you soon.